Let's talk about what it really takes to make peace. Not just saying sorry, but a real, tangible act that brings people together. Today, we're heading back in time to see how the ancient Israelites answered that question with a powerful ritual from Leviticus chapter 3, the peace offering.
It's a question we still wrestle with, right? For the Israelites, the answer wasn't just a word. It was an experience. It was a shared meal and a special offering meant to celebrate their connection with God. So come on, let's step into the courtyard of the ancient tabernacle and see how this whole thing worked.
All right, our story starts here with verse 1. I want you to picture an Israelite, a regular person leading an animal from their herd through a crowd of people. This is step 1. Now, this isn't just any old animal. The text is really clear. It has to be without blemish. So imagine the absolute best bull or cow from their entire herd, perfectly healthy, strong, no scars, no defects. This is all about bringing your very best, something whole and complete, to start this process of making peace. So the rules here were actually pretty straightforward. It didn't matter if it was a male or a female animal. Either was fine. But the one thing that was absolutely non-negotiable? It had to be perfect. And this was about more than just a rule. It was about the heart behind it, giving something truly valuable, the best you had to offer. Now in verse 2, things get really personal. The camera, if you will, zooms in from the animal to a very specific, intimate action that the worshiper has to perform themselves. Just feel the weight of this for a second. The worshiper steps up and presses their hand down firmly on the animal's head. This is not a gentle pat, it's a powerful symbol, a way of saying, this animal stands for me. This offering is from me. Then, right there at the entrance to the sacred tent, the sacrifice is made. Okay, now in verses 3 and 4, the priests take over. Their part of the job is incredibly precise, almost like a surgeon's. They have to carefully separate the portion of the offering that's designated specifically for God. The text gets really specific here, detailing exactly what needs to be set aside, all the internal fat. In the ancient world, fat was energy. It was richness. This was considered the choicest, most valuable part of the animal. Think of it like taking the best slice of the cake and setting it aside for the guest of honor. All right, so now we get to verse 5. This is the moment of offering, when that specially prepared portion finally ascends. Picture this. The great bronze altar is already blazing hot. The priests take these rich, fatty pieces and place them right onto the flames. You can imagine the smoke just billowing up towards the sky. And the text calls this a sweet aroma to the Lord. So what in the world does that mean? Yeah, this sweet aroma wasn't really about a nice smell. It was a signal. It meant the offering was accepted. The gesture was received. It was a sign that peace had been successfully made. In that moment, seeing that smoke rise, you'd know the connection is complete. So let's just quickly pause and look at the rhythm we've seen so far. You present a perfect animal. You identify with it. The sacrifice is made, the priests handle the blood, and then the very best portion goes up in smoke. This 5-step pattern is the absolute heartbeat of the peace offering. But what if you couldn't afford a big animal from the herd, like a bull? Well, in verse 6, the text gives another option, showing that this ritual was meant for everyone. You could also bring an animal from your flock. So, as we see in verses 7 and 8, the animal changes, but the core actions, they stay exactly the same. Now you can picture someone bringing a perfect little lamb. They still lay their hand on its head, they still make the sacrifice at the entrance, and the priest handle the blood in the exact same way. The principle doesn't change. Now, as we get to verse 9, the instructions for the lamb offering have this one really specific, kind of weird detail that you don't see with the other animals. Did you catch that? Along with all the internal fat we heard about before, verse 10 says the priest has to offer the whole fat tail. And verse 11 confirms this all gets burned on the altar. It sounds a little strange, but this one part was a required piece of God's portion. So why? Why the tail? And here's the amazing reason why. We are not talking about the kind of sheep's tail you might picture today. The sheep in this part of the world had these massive, fatty tails. They could weigh over 15 pounds. They were considered a huge delicacy. So to offer the entire thing, well, that was a very significant, very costly gift. Then, in verse 12, the text gives us a third and final option, which just reinforces that this ritual was for everybody. What if your offering was a goat? By now, you know the drill, right? Verse 13, same thing. The worshiper lays their hand on its head. Verses 14 and 15 list the exact same fatty portions to be taken out. And verse 16 confirms the result. It's all burned on the altar for that sweet aroma. Whether it's a cow, a lamb, or a goat, the core actions never change. And then, right at the end of verse 16, after laying out all the options, the text just lands on this incredibly powerful, simple summary. This is it. This is the main idea of the whole chapter. The best part, the richest part, the most valuable portion, it's always reserved for God. The chapter then closes out with verse 17, and this is a final command that takes this whole principle way beyond the altar and brings it right into people's homes and daily lives. See, this wasn't just a rule for the priests when they were on duty at the tabernacle. This was for everyone, everywhere they lived, for all time. The two most important elements of the sacrifice, the blood, which stood for life, and the fat, which stood for the best part, were now set apart in their day-to-day lives as a constant reminder. And this timeline really shows you what perpetual statute meant. This wasn't some temporary rule for their time in the desert. It was meant to be woven into the very fabric of their identity, passed down from one generation to the next, forever connecting their dinner table back to the altar.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The specific rituals, well, they belong to the ancient world, but the principle behind it all is absolutely timeless. If the whole point of the peace offering was about gratefully and joyfully giving the very best part back to the source of it all, what could that look like for us today?